welcome to Escafe Online International Culinary Academy. We're excited to have you join us this week again at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Particularly of interest to you will be knife skills, introduction to knife skills. And we will identify our knives and discuss ways to mark them, especially if you're working in a restaurant or food service operation. Many times knives can be mislaid or misplaced. They all look alike, many of them. So this way you'll be able to see and to identify what they are and identify your knives when in a work setting or in a classroom setting. So here's our Mercer knife toolkit. And you'll have a fold or a case. This depends on the spec. But usually they're fully forged knives. These are steel forged knives. There's no carbon knives in the kit. I have a carbon knife here. I'll discuss that later on. These are all stainless steel forged knives. And that's important to realize what that means. These are high quality. That means the steel and chromium and tungsten are melted, poured into a large vat, more or less, and then poured into molds in which it's hammered down into the shape. And then they get a chef's knife. And they hammer it, and they hammer it flat, and eventually it's the thickness they want, and the handle is attached to it. So these are forged knives as opposed to plate steel punched out of a sheet of steel, which are less expensive, don't last as long, and they can sometimes rust or not sharpen as well. Conversely, the high quality stainless steel knives, the very high quality ones you're paying a lot of money for, $300-400, don't sharpen as well. It takes them longer to sharpen them. So we like a blend. And these are high carbon stainless steel knives. It gives you the flexibility of sharpening it easier, and also the strength to last. Well, I'd have chef knives when I went to chef school those many decades ago. So they last a lifetime. Probably the most important thing to realize is you usually don't cut yourself while cutting. It's usually putting the knives in the case or taking them out. So be very careful you put them in your backpack. Or if you're in this knife kit that you fully extend the flaps, open up the knife kit, and make sure when you remove the knives that you're very careful because you get, jolt it and cut on the other knife. I do it every so often. I usually cut my fingers because my knives are in the kit the wrong way. So avoid that. Have them all face one way, as you can see the blade. And don't pack don't pack two knives per a little holder or pocket. Very important. So they've been dried, they're sanitized, they're put away. I'm ready to work now. I may not put all my knives out, but I put out the ones that are important. I secure my knife kit, keep it somewhere. I'm going to mark my knife kit. I'm going to put my tag, like a luggage tag on it. I'm going to mark or put my mark on my knives. I might dip in marine paint that we use on boats. Or I might engrave them with engraver that we usually have an initial or some symbol. I know it's my knife because many times knives look alike. People don't mean to steal them, but sometimes they pick them up by mistake. Or many times they wind up in the garbage can, especially the small knives. So be careful, people cleaning. There goes your paring knife. So your knives are kept in their case. Let's see what we have. Let's identify them and talk about what their uses are in this session. So our first knife is what we call a chef's knife or a French knife that the French use. Of course, the Western world uses this knife, so it's also known as a chef's knife. It's between 8 and some are 14 inches in length. This is a nice 10-inch chef's knife. You can see high carbon stainless steel. There's some striations in there. This one is made in Taiwan, inexpensive steel, as well as Spain, and China now produce inexpensive steel. It's just a matter of how much chromium and tungsten is added to it that makes it gives it stiffness. Like I said, these are high carbon stainless steel knives, so it allows us to sharpen it easier and also to keep a nice edge. The parts of the knife are the handle, right? The bolster, the spine, the tip, the heel, the blade itself, right? Polypropylene handle, which is grease resistant, and it won't chip, which is nice. Drop it on the floor. If a knife falls, let it drop on the floor. Don't catch it. Just stand back and let it fall. Don't go for it, because then, well, that would be another unfortunate cut you'll have. Besides the one you'll get digging for your knives in the knife kit. Always take a knife kit out, take your knives out. Don't catch a fully knife. So this propylene handle, grease resistant, and like they say, sandy knife, because there's no rivets. As you see in my Greta knife, there's rivets. And there's, locking rivets with the wooden handles. Through years, these kind of loosen and, through use, through putting them in drawers, which is bad to do. The rivets and the wood, the water-resistant wood, tends to loosen and chip. And this can wear out, where this handle, and of course it can attract bacteria, where this is more considered sandy safe, sanitary knife, wherein you can wash it easily. Invariably, the less expensive knives are in the sandy handle. So that's my chef's knife. How do we hold that? A relaxed hand grip is one way, like you'd hold a hammer. Or the blade grip. We'll do more of this, of course, next time when we actually do some advanced knife skills. Today's identification. Or the blade hold, which is comfortable as well, especially if you have a large hand and you see your hand hitting the counter. You can go to the blade hold and use that, wrapping your 3 fingers around the handle. And that can be used in a nice cutting motion. We don't bang it. We use the nice sawing motion. The knife stays on the cutting board, moving forward, pulling the tip back, moving forward, pulling the tip back. That's how we cut. A nice motion. That's your chef's knife. You'll see a bread knife, serrated bread knife. This has a wooden handle, rivets, they're locking rivets. There's a larger rivet and a smaller rivet. And once they're connected, they lock. This is a full tang knife. This is full tang as well. Full tang means the metal goes all the way to the end. It balances that way, as this does as well. Some of your inexpensive knives, the blade ends about here. And the knife can be a bit imbalanced. I think many cooks, culinarians, and chefs like a certain feel, weight, or heft of a knife. You'll see which one is comfortable for you. Go to the bread knife. This is stainless steel, of course. It's high carbon stainless steel. Bread knife is used for, well, you have to cut bread with it. So it's not meant to be, you shouldn't be mincing and dicing with a bread knife. First of all, it's a serrated scalloped edge. You won't be cutting anything on a flat surface. You have to use it to cut or saw bread. Or rolls or bagels. Be careful when you're handling baked bread like a bagel or a roll. Be careful when you cut them. Just be mindful to cut down away from you. Don't cut towards yourself. Oh, I'm going to cut a bagel in half. Bad idea. So with a bread knife, we cut down. Usually we cut straight down. We cut towards us or away from us. As you can see that. And that's your bread knife used for cutting bread. This is brand new. It's nice and sharp, and once the tips wear out, it'll be a long time, but at some point, the tips will wear out, but before the blade will dull, you sharpen it just as you would on a sharpening stone. So that's a nice bread knife, good quality bread knife. The next one is a Greta knife, or a Santoku knife. This is a hybrid, I guess you'd call it. It's Western handle with a Asian or Eastern knife. This is the original Santoku. You see the difference? This is a Wa Santoku, and this is a Western version of the Santoku. It's called a Greta knife because it has these dimples or depressions that help resistance when you're slicing, right? So that's your. This is a Wa Santoku. This is carbon steel with chromium and tungsten. This is stainless steel. So they're very different in their weight. They're very different in sharpness. The carbon steel with chromium and tungsten, very superior blade. Though it does stain. Stainless steel, chromium and tungsten does the stain, not as sharp as the Japanese Wa Santoku. The difference with the Western Greta knife is it's different than cutting with a chef's knife. And I know some people are used to using this, but the problem with this is you really can't rock with it. You aren't able to cut because of the structure. It isn't meant to use as a chef's knife because it's just not shaped that way. It's straight. You actually have to cut, using a Santoku knife, you have to cut down with it, or cut right to left, or left to right. Though you can certainly dice with it, it has an unusual bounce back because it doesn't have the tapered tip, which the chef's knife does. Some people say, well, I like to use that one because I'm afraid of holding the blade. And they want to keep their hand away from it. That's okay to do.
Does everything there come in the kit, Chef?
This is a knife kit that we picked. I have added a few items in there. So it depends on a few things. So that's the Greta knife. It doesn't have a bolster. Neither does this one. There's a bolster here. That's important to realize when you have a knife that has a bolster. See, this one has a bolster, so it's secure and safe. My sashimi knife does not. And you can cut yourself, and I have with this. Of course, if you have Asian chef's knife, it has a large bolster, right? So that's kind of safe. You know you're not going to go anywhere with a knife like that. Always keep your knife hand dry. But back to the Greta knife, the Santoku knife, sort of a hybrid. And the Santoku is meant to be tipped or tapered so that you can slice and cut right to left or left to right. I think this is a bit unwieldy. What they've done is made these aerodynamic dimples, as you see in a large slicer, roast beef slicer, that kind of helps, I guess, as you go through the meat. You can't get it as sharp as this knife, but this aerodynamic actually helps reduce the meat sticks as you're cutting it, right? So this kind of gives that a little thinner blade profile. I don't really use this. It comes with our kit. I guess I'm old-fashioned. I either use the real thing or I use my chef's knife. But it has its uses.
I was going to ask about the flat blade. Is flat edge blade best for chopping?
I'm sorry, was that a question? I didn't understand it.
Is flat edge best for chopping?
Is a flat edge best for chopping? Do you mean this flat edge meaning that, as opposed to the fluted edge that we're referring to? Yes, the answer would be yes. If I've interpreted your question correctly, the fluted blade versus the flat edge blade would be, although you can use the Greta to chop, it's the Santoku. It isn't meant to be used for chop. It's meant to be used for slicing and mincing. It's not a chopping knife. But like I said, it's a hybrid, and it's both ways, Western and Asian. It crosses the barrier. For the classic motion that we use in Western cuisine, as opposed to the chopping motion that we use in Chinese cuisine, or the slicing motion, there's more slicing in Asian cuisines than there is in Western cuisine, where we do more of the mincing. So it just depends on the cuisine, surprisingly enough, which tool you use. Not that I couldn't make great Chinese cuisine with a French knife. I can. But sometimes the blade itself is very helpful to be used as a scoop or as a paddle. You can use it to poundings as well, and it works as a super sharp slicer and chef's knife, kind of all built into one, where this isn't really a slicer. But it depends what you're comfortable with, and that's what's important. Knowing how to use them and how to wash them safely is very important. Let's put those back there. Next one is a boning knife. This is a flexible boning knife. See, that's flexible. We use that to cut meat. It's usually held like a dagger, and we go and we will trace a bone. Maybe this was a bone, and I'm holding on to it. That's the bone, this sashimi knife, and I'm tracing that. And I use a knife. I always cut with the bone. If I can't see where I am, I saw the hip bone, in the veal leg or the lamb leg I'm cutting or the pork leg I've been cutting. Always follow along the bone. You can't go wrong. If you follow along the bone, you really won't get too far for a loss. So this is a boning knife for that purpose. To be held that way, to move my knife, to release the meat off the bone. And then you can also use it, sometimes I've used it to, to cut something very thin because it's nice and narrow. Go ahead. And I can, sometimes slice it.
Is it a good investment to get both styles?
Someone asked, is it a good investment in both styles? Well, it depends how much you're going to use sashimi knife. I taught Japanese cuisine for years, so this is a favorite of mine, though it's cut me very badly twice. You have to be mindful of, I cut my hand when my hand was wet and greasy. So learn from me, your knife holding hand should always be perfectly dry. The other hand is not as important. You buy the knife styles that you like. You buy what is important for you. What you're going to use it for. Inexpensive chef's knife works just as fine too. Just depends on, your choice, you're a craftsman, what you want to do, what you want to buy, what joy you get from buying a $230 Santoku, handmade, as opposed to maybe a $45 machine-made Santoku knife. It's always your choice, chef's choice, right? This is a paring knife used to, we pare vegetables, turn or peel a carrot or turnip, potato. I also hold them like a pencil sometime if I'm cutting out carrot rows or tomato rows or flour, so I hold them like that. But mostly used for paring. And many times if I want to mince shallots, I'll use it because the shallot's really tiny and I'll use it to mince. So it has its uses. Then the bird's beak knife.
How do you get food not to stick to your shelf knife?
Someone asked, how do we get food to not stick on our chef's knife? Well, what you want to do is always have a damp cloth nearby, wipe it off, make sure the handle's dry, and it won't stick to your chef's knife. That's a great question. Bird's beak knife, because it's like a bird's beak, that's used for turning and paring. We'll show you that next time. You're going to have a channel knife, looks like that, or a strip peeler. I'm not going to strip peel my hand, but the idea is you cut a channel as you would cucumber or zucchini, or use it to cut a nice big orange zest if you're making a Negroni, or a big lemon zest if you're making a side cocktail Magnum style. Then we have a vegetable peeler. The OXO grip or nice, the wider grip, very handy if you're doing lots of peeling. The 89 cents veg peeler doesn't get you far. This is very good. And you want to invest, if you don't have one in your kit, you have the inexpensive one. Buy one with this handle. It's worth every penny because you do lots of peeling. You have a steel, ideally, comes with your kit. I'll show you how to sharpen a knife in a few minutes. Measuring spoons. Chef's fork, right? Cook's fork is usually on an angle, curved up. Chef's fork straight. Pocket thermometer, you see that here. We also have a citrus zester for zest, for flavor, lemon, orange zest. And here we have the double-sided pomme Parisienne or Parisienne scoop, melon baller, small and large. Kitchen shears, right? And you probably have your Mercer rules, knife guide, which is kind of cool with different sizes, large, medium, small knives, Brunoise, batonette, julienne, fine julienne, paysanne, tournée. So this is great to have. And then lastly in our kit we have a bench scraper, which I use many times, or I use the back of my chef's knife for that. And then as we wind up today's class, I want to try to sharpen your knife. If the knife is dull, and mine get dull too, give myself a couple of dimes. Then I'll put just a little water on the surface. This is a carborundum. Carborundum The best carborundums in the US, mostly in the world pretty much, are from Arkansas. Their sharpening stones are quite superior. And you're supposed to make sure the knife is at a 16-degree angle is exact, but we'll take a 20-degree angle. So I put 2 dimes on my sharpening stone. With water, I don't use oil. Lay it right on the top. That's the angle at which I was sharpening my knife. So I've done it so many times, I pretty much know what a 20-degree angle is. And you can do a circular motion. Make sure you sharpen the tip to the heel on the stone. Invert, same thing. 20-degree angle. In a circular motion. Or you can do from heel to toe, pull it across the carborundum. Reverse, heel to toe again. It's like you're scraping off a layer of stone. We don't do this. If you're a barber, you can do that, but we're not barbers, so we don't sharpen our knives by doing that. It'll completely set off and unbalance the knife. It won't be sharp, and eventually you'll have this worn out stone. So don't use oil. You scrape across both ways, heel to toe, 20-degree angle, or you can do it in a circular motion, which is fine as well. See? Those are the 2 approved methods. I'm sure there's other ones to sharpen your knife. Once you have that side down, and we can finish off on the other side. Same idea. Always wipe the blade away from you, then you finish off with your steel. Same thing, 20-degree angle both sides, right? You can stand it up if you're not quite sure what's a 20-degree angle. Well, that's 90, that's 45, half of that's about 20, so heel, tip, heel, tip. Make sure that you're not doing this. Because one day you'll go, which I did when I was very young. So I hold it right here. So it's away from me. I'm watching this behind me. I'm not doing this in the aisle. So give some pressure on it. Eventually you'll get some gray. That's not the steel. That's the metal coming off the stone. See that? So that's what you want. We don't care the knife scratched up looking. We want the blade to be sharp. That's very important. It's a sharp knife. Question coming in, great.
Can grinding wheel be used to sharpen knives?
Someone said, can a grinding wheel be used to sharpen knives? Only if the grinder knows what they're doing. That's the short and the long answer of that. If you're not expert at grinding, I wouldn't be using a grinding wheel, because you'll then destroy that edge in there. I recall knife sharpeners coming by the hotel and the club some years back, and after about 2 years, my knife shrunk. I said, hey, what? They would take the blade off, and sure enough, the knife would disappear. So I'm not a big fan of someone coming and grinding my knife. I like the factory edge. I like to maintain it myself. I wouldn't bring it to a knife grinding and sharpening service unless you if an inexpensive knife, it's $46 knife. Well, that's okay. I'm not saying this is an inexpensive knife, but they never can get that factory edge or the size right once they put it on that, because they're doing it by hand. So I say no. Chef says no, and that's what he means. It was nice having you all here today as we looked at our knives. Join us next week. We'll be doing knife cuts, some of the classic cuts. And it'll be fun to do. And I'll bring at that point the sashimi knife to show you that. Of course, the classic French knife. I'll bring the Santoku, the Japanese handmade, hand-forged knife, and then the Chinese wedge knife. We'll show you all those skills, and it's great because Asian cuisine is very popular. So I think you'll enjoy seeing that next week. Question coming in as we wrap up. Excellent.
Can I use a bread knife to cut meat or vegetables in an emergency?
No, someone said, can they use the bread knife to cut meat in an emergency? You bet, because that's pretty sharp, right? Just make sure you cut down or cut through, right? Cut down away from you or cut through towards you. You bet. You can certainly use that for For cutting a piece of meat, piece of bread, sure. Good question. Well, thank you for joining us today. It was nice to have you. We'll see you next week. Happy cooking and bon appetit.